dollar, dollar, that's what I need. Hey, hey. Well, I need a dollar, 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 that's what I need. Hey, hey. Said I need a dollar, 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 that's what I need. And if I share with you my story, would you share your dollar with me? Bad times are coming and I reap what I done sowed. Hey, hey. Well, let me tell you something, all that glitters ain't gold. Hey, hey. It's been a long old troublesome road, and I'm looking for somebody come and help me carry this load. I need a dollar, 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 that's what I need. Hey, hey.
KBLA Talk 1580. We need a few trillion around here because reparations is the conversation. We do this every Friday. It's Freedmen Friday in an attempt to make sure we are up to date. Part of the solution in the mix around all things reparations. And I'm pleased to welcome into the conversation this morning a Baltimore-based political organizer, director of public policy for Leaders of the Beautiful Struggle. It's a grassroots think tank that advances public policy interests of Black people. He was one of the founders of that organization, and has been at the forefront also of this reparations fight. Dayvon Love, good morning.
Good morning. Thanks for having me on.
Yeah, thanks for calling in all the way from the other coast. Maryland,
That's
of
right.
course, has been in the conversation. We talked about this last week because you guys had statewide legislation that was vetoed by your governor, Wes Moore, which, made a lot of people mad because it was actually, I guess it was week before last. Last week was Thanksgiving. We talk with Reverend Dr. Heber Brown because you have a Black governor, so a lot of folks felt that he had a special responsibility to sign that bill. But I have heard arguments saying, well, he made a good point. The time for studies is over, and we need more action. But I haven't seen that action. Maybe you can update me.
Yeah. So if I can tease out the process, because I think it helps put the governor's veto letter in perspective and context. So my organization, we make it standard procedure. We, with the presiding officers, our Speaker of our State House, our Senate President, and then the administration, the governor. And so in 2023 and 2024, we made it clear to the governor that reparations was something that we would be pushing for. And in 2024, we actually submitted a proposal to the administration. And the feedback we got in the summer of 2024 was that given Maryland's budget crisis, they didn't want to commit. And the policy we laid forward wasn't a study. We included certain revenue opportunities that would fund a reparations program, expanding on some of the stuff that we'd already done here in Maryland with the establishment of the Community Repair and Reinvestment Fund. So we had put forward like concrete examples of policies that would have resulted in redress as a start. And we were told that because of the budget crisis that he didn't want to commit additional resources given the situation of the state budget. So then we worked, with the Legislative Black Caucus on a bill. And to me, the most important aspect of the bill is not the part about studying the harms that have been done to Black people as a result of chattel slavery and racial terror and white supremacy in Maryland. That's important. But the most important thing is that the study would be a commission that will produce recommendations on how to implement a reparations policy. And that is something that no previous study that's been done. And so when the governor mentions these 4 other studies that have been done, and in fact, I was actually on one of those task force studies that's referring to, none of these studies accomplished the goal of laying out what it would look like to implement reparations. And even in the bill, it contemplates things like tax rebates, things like, collective land ownership. Like there's a range of things that could be recommended to the legislature. And that's not something that an individual person can do by themselves. And to your point, when he says that he's about action, I think part of the challenge is that the things that he has identified as reparations, as far as we're concerned, isn't reparations. And I can talk more about that. But I think that's really the difference, is that he's talking about what might be good policy. That's different than what reparations is about.
A couple things, well, a lot of stuff to unbox about what you said. First of all, this idea that it's a different kind of study, i.e., a study about how to get it done rather than a study about is it warranted and who's eligible, right?
That's right. That's right. That's right. And I think the additional part that I think is important to that as well is that when you look at, one of the things that he actually attempted to do during session, it was reported by the Baltimore Banner, was that instead of the reparations bill, a Truth and Reconciliation Commission executive order. So that was something that his team talked to me about in the middle of the Maryland General Assembly, which is pretty unprecedented because that's something typically you do in the summertime before session starts. And I was clear, and I said it directly to him, that I was clear that I think his issue with reparations is that it is an issue that may alienate a Democratic Party primary voter in a presidential election, and that Truth and Reconciliation is something that is more palatable to a white mainstream. And it is my belief that the veto is really about preserving his presidential aspirations in the Democratic primary as opposed to the actual policy itself.
To be honest with you, I from way out here, not knowing any of the stuff that you just said, that's how it looked to me. I think that's how it looked to us. Oh, you want to run for president, so you're just like our governor, who is willing to sell out the reparations movement to preserve his presidential chances.
That's right. That's right. That's right. And it's unfortunate because I think that, the governor is someone who, I knew him before he was governor. I generally think he's a good person. Like I haven't worked with him.
Yeah, it seems like a great guy. It'd be way better than the president we have now. But this is Freedmen Friday. We're talking about reparations, so right.
Absolutely.
So what even is a Truth and Reconciliation Commission? I mean, are we talking about South Africa where we all confess our sins and then the no wealth or land exchanges hands?
Yeah, and that was one of the things that I raised with someone on his team, where I asked the question, especially, most people, when you hear Truth and Reconciliation, you think of South Africa.
Right.
And you think about the fact that, as you stated, there was no transfer of land or wealth. I think it's about 80% of the land in South Africa is owned by white folks still. Right?
Yeah,
So
and they own all of the business wealth. I was there a couple of years ago, and it's actually quite stunning that you can have black people running the government, but the government is run by the corporate class that owns everything. It's a very strong argument against a Truth and Reconciliation without reparation.
Exactly. And so again, I think that now, a couple of things that the governor has said as reparations that I want to just debunk for a second,
yes.
For your listeners. One of the things that he touts is the mass pardons. So he issued mass pardons on folks with misdemeanor cannabis charges, right? And he issued about 175,000 mass pardons. He touts it as the kind of largest mass pardon in the history of the country. There are two particular challenges with that. The first is that three really. The first is that a pardon doesn't remove it off of your record. It just says that the governor says that it shouldn't have been a crime when it was a crime.
It doesn't give you back the years or days that you lost. It doesn't give you back the earning potential that you lost.
Right. And it's still on your record, right? So if an employer has an issue with it, they see the part, but it's on your record. It's also duplicative of what the legislature did 2 years prior, where the legislature actually created an opportunity for people with cannabis possession charges to have their records expunged. So that was something that the legislature had already done. They also established a procedure where if a person who is incarcerated, for whom their sentence has to do with cannabis possession charges, that an opportunity for resentencing, right, in light of the fact that cannabis had, become recreationally legal in the state of Maryland. And so there's a way that even that policy is an example of really a showpiece, right? It's one of the things that I think the Democratic Party does so well, right, is that they're able to make these gestures to appear to really be advocates for justice with not actually being disruptive to the political system. And one of the things that we actually worked on was a piece of legislation that would have prohibited the use of the odor of cannabis as the basis for a stop and search, because in Maryland, cannabis was recreationally legalized, and so we had a fight. We had an uphill battle against the prosecutors all around the country. I mean, not the country, around the state. They were trying to stop this bill from passing. It was the last bill to pass during that Maryland General Assembly, and when it was put to the governor let it go into effect without signing it. And so so for me, it's an example of, the law enforcement establishment was against that bill, right? And he let it go into effect without signing it. The mass pardons is easier than actually having to fight the law enforcement establishment. So that's just an example. Like, he's using that as the example of reparations, when in fact it's really a showpiece to get the credit for criminal justice reform without actually doing the hard fights that would be more impactful for our community.
I mean, and it's great. I love the mass pardons, but it is not reparations. I mean, I just don't see. Right. I don't even see a legitimate argument that is reparations. We're talking with Dayvon Love, and we will continue our conversation. It's a comprehensive conversation on reparations every Friday, Freedmen Friday, on KBLA Talk 1580.
She's reclaiming her time on KBLA Talk 1580. More First Things First with Dominic DePrima when we come forward.
KBLA Talk 1580 remembers Robin Ayers on the 1-year anniversary of her passing. 1 year ago this week, we lost a remarkable and vibrant voice. Robin Ayers touched countless lives through her passion, her love, her service, and her smile, which you could see through the radio. KBLA Talk 1580 honors her memory and celebrates the legacy she left behind. Robin, your spirit lives on in every conversation, in every connection, and in every one of us, inspired by your voice. Gone but never forgotten. KBLA Talk 1580, where voices matter.
I'm missing you. Tell me why the road turns. I'm missing you. Tell me why the road turns.
Is reviewing life insurance on your to-do list? Now's the perfect time to add it. A friend recently told me that securing life insurance sooner rather than later can help you lock in lower rates for years to come. So I bumped this up on my list and got it done. I called SelectQuote and couldn't believe how easy and affordable life insurance is. I'm 40 and got a $500,000 policy for $16 a month. My husband's also 40 and his $500,000 policy was only $18 a month. Plus, with SelectQuote's same-day coverage, there was no medical exam required, and we were covered by the time we hung up. Knowing I have this checked off my list feels amazing, but the peace of mind knowing my family is protected feels even better.
Call SelectQuote at 1-800-729-7070. That's 1-800-729-7070. Or go to SelectQuote.com to get your free quote today. That's 1-800-729-7070. Details on example rate at SelectQuote.com.
The holidays mean more travel, more shopping, more time online, and more personal info in more places that could expose you more to identity theft. But LifeLock monitors millions of data points per second. If your identity is stolen, our US-based restoration specialists will fix it, guaranteed, or your money back. Don't face drained accounts, fraudulent loans, or financial losses alone. Get more holiday fun and less holiday worry with LifeLock. Save up to 40% your first year with promo code NEWS. Visit lifelock.com. Terms apply.
The only thing between you and your best self is a start button. This Cyber Monday, explore the world with Nordic Track. From the peaks of Peru to the streets of Paris, every workout moves you somewhere new with iFit trainers leading the way. The equipment's amazing, smooth, quiet, and those screens make it all feel real. Ready to start your next workout adventure with the #1 treadmill brand in the U.S.? Shop NordicTrack.com for Cyber Monday savings. Nordic Track. Train anywhere, explore everywhere.
The conversation continues right now with Dominic DePrima on First Things First.
And it's a conversation with Dayvon Love, a reparations activist out of Baltimore, director of public policy, the group Leaders of a Beautiful Struggle. And so we were discussing, where you are there in Maryland. Now, to be clear, the city of Maryland has a reparations commission, right? You were trying to take it to the state level.
So there are two separate related efforts. So it's an effort that we worked on in 2022 that used cannabis proceeds from recreational cannabis to establish a statewide community repair reinvestment fund that required each jurisdiction to figure out how to use their portion of those dollars. And in Baltimore, we did establish a Baltimore Reinvestment and Reparations Commission specifically for the war on drugs, right? So that was what that was in 2022. The bill we're talking about now is a piece of legislation that was a legislative Black Caucus priority to establish a statewide commission on studying how to implement reparations policy in Maryland. So they're related, but they're separate in terms of what those initiatives were.
Okay, and that 2022 effort only dealt with the war on drugs. I mean, when you look at the California Task Force report, it breaks out all these different areas where repair is needed, where reparation is appropriate. So that is just one narrowly focused aspect of reparations from that 2022 effort.
That's correct. And currently there's a commission. We're in the process of implementation. The hope being that it would be an example of what it means to, or how to allocate public resources to a reparations effort and distribute resources. So they're in the process of implementation, and hopefully in 2026 we'll see resources distributed with the reparations frame in Baltimore. And
those are specifically linked to cannabis tax proceeds, and they're specifically
that's right
repairing damage from the war on drugs.
That's correct. That's correct.
But what kinds of things are you looking at? I mean, you said hopefully in 2026 you'll see some actual distribution of funds. What kinds of things might we see?
I mean, it's hard to say. One of the things that we put in the legislation is that it include things like, in the guide that accompanied the legislation that we move, include things like, supporting collective land ownership, supporting, worker cooperatives, providing, specific investments in projects for those who are formerly incarcerated. So that's broadly like some of the things that's on the table. Again, it's still in the implementation phase, and the commission ultimately will be a major force in determining what that looks like.
So, what are you thinking of in terms of next steps? Is it to continue to push that broad legislation like the one that was vetoed by the governor, or is it going issue by issue? I mean, you say, okay, this is the war on drugs. We could do another, reparations push for housing, another one for health, disparities. That seems like a long road, but you've been successful on one issue. How do you see the way forward?
So one of the things that we're focused on now is actually overriding the governor's veto. So our state legislature is in session from January to April. So the bill, the statewide commission bill in Maryland passed in April of 2025. The governor vetoed it in May of 2025. So the first thing that our legislature has to take up are the vetoes. So in January, our legislative session starts January 14th of 2026. And so that is when there'll be an opportunity for the legislature to override the veto. So we've been actually working on, urging and pressuring elected officials and educating the community to pressure their representatives to urge them to support overriding the veto. And I want to give a big shout out and credit to the Legislative Black Caucus of Maryland, who for months has called for overriding the veto publicly and is urging, their colleagues when it comes up for a vote to override the veto.
So that means
so that's the work that we're working on.
Yeah, so that means right now you're doing lobbying, you're doing,
that's right.
Anything, I guess, public education and mobilization to pressure lawmakers into overturning that veto.
That's correct. That's correct.
I mean,
and again, with leadership in the Black Caucus. And I think, I think our prospects are good. I think the governor is doing the best that he can to try to block it. But I feel good. And as many people reach out, and put, public pressure, the more chances that gives us of a successful override.
So you say he's lobbying behind the scenes to block it because it would be he thinks it would be a bad look for him to have his veto being overridden. Is that why, or is it because because that to me makes it seem like you're just against reparations. If you were to leave it alone and sit back and just, oh well, they overrode my veto, what can I do?
Yeah, it's hard. It's hard for me to speculate on his kind of stated internal rationale.
Right.
What I can say is that I know that he's still engaged in deal making to try as best as he can to block the override. I know it's something that's really important to him to try to block it. And I think that he probably bristles at the fact that folks like myself attribute the veto to a political calculus. Though to your point, I think most people, even people that know him, I think attribute it to that. And I think he's put himself in a bad spot because he's doing a lot of, media hits where he's being asked about reparations and doing the same kind of rhetoric of I'm about action. He sees the importance of the work of repair. But to the point that you raised earlier, he hasn't actually engaged in any meaningful policy. One of the things that he actually uses as an example is this Just Communities initiative, where he talks about an investment of $400 million in communities that were historically redlined. But that $400 million is not new money. That is existing money that he's directing his agencies to target projects in communities that would otherwise be redlined. Again, that's not reparations, right? That's that might be good investment.
It
right,
could be. I mean, it sounds like a rehash of opportunity zones, which I know from my perspective is BS. It's just giving corporations tax breaks to come in and exploit us. It doesn't build wealth in our communities.
Right. And so at best, it is a, shift in existing resources that were likely already going to go to some of the places where those projects were going to go. But again, it's not reparations. And so again, these are part of the challenge to your question about what is his rationale? I think that he is a moderate Democrat, right? He is squarely a liberal.
Right.
And I think when you're a liberal and you believe even kind of in the majesty of liberal democracy, then things like, he talks about procurement, more black businesses that have been able to get resources from the state. It's again, though that might be good policy, right? But that's not reparations. That's not investing in our capacity to practice sovereignty and self-determination. Those are different things. And so I think that's the ongoing challenge. But again, it's hard to say. It's hard to say what his kind of stated internal dialogue is. I think he might say he believes in reparations, but he believes that what he's doing is that. And I've constantly have been saying they're just not the same.
Yeah, I mean, that's a really good point, too. It's reminds me of people who were angry that President Barack Obama didn't do reparations. Well, he was a moderate when you elected him. You knew he was a moderate when you elected him. It wasn't a secret, so it sounds like this is Obama 2.0 in a sense. What happens if you are successful and that veto is overridden?
Well, then the commission gets established, and it allows us to do the work that we can do within the commission to ensure that really solid recommendations come out of it. Those recommendations would be proposed or presented to the legislature in 2028, which isn't a lot of time, but I think we'll work it. It'll be enough time to put before the legislature really solid recommendations. And I think, just to your audience that might say, well, our commission's helpful. Commissions and task force can go either direction. Sometimes task force and commissions are like throwaway things because they know that the policy is never going to happen. So it's a way to appease folks. But there are also examples of commissions where it's important to set up the infrastructure of how you're going to implement something. In Maryland, we did something similar by establishing a juvenile justice reform council, right, that developed recommendations that then became policy, right, as to how to address some of the ways that youth were being sucked into the criminal justice system. And we actually have a problem in Maryland where we're one of the few states that still automatically charges youth as adults.
Automatically?
But part of the purpose of
wow, that's insane.
So Yeah, so that's one of the things we're actually working on, too, this coming session, something we worked on last year. But as an example of a commission that was established, and in fact, that commission recently actually ruled that Maryland should end this practice of automatically charging youth as adults, which means that becomes additional ammunition for folks like myself to be able to move it through the legislature, right? And so there are examples of commissions that when, in fact, the governor actually just recently set up a commission for redrawing the congressional maps in Maryland, recognizing that having those conversations helps you then to implement the best policies moving forward. So we anticipate that the recommendations that come out of this commission, we are going to actively be using those recommendations, and it's going to help us be able to move those pieces of legislation through the legislature. Talking with
Dayvon Love out of the state of Maryland. We're talking reparations, and this is KBLA Talk 1580.
Say the quiet part out loud. KBLA Talk 1580.
I'm Bree Wood with BIN News Now. A Michigan Army veteran is getting a chance to retire thanks to social media. TikToker Sam Wiedenhofer launched a GoFundMe for 88-year-old Deb Bombas, whose GM pension was wiped out in 2012. Here's Bombas' son, Mike.
You hear a lot of bad out there in the world, but there's a lot of good, too.
The campaign has raised over $1.5 million after Wiedenhofer met Bombas working at a grocery store. In Georgia, baby Chance Smith remains in the NICU nearly 6 months after his mother, Adriana Smith, was declared brain dead while 8 weeks pregnant. Doctors kept her on life support to deliver Chance, who was born June 13th, weighing just under 2 pounds. He's now 11 pounds, but still faces serious lung issues. And Black Representative Ayanna Pressley says she's passing on a Senate run for Ed Markey's seat and will seek re-election in Massachusetts' 7th District. Pressley cited family priorities and unfinished work in the House. Get BIN News Now on demand 24/7 on the iHeartRadio app.
Compassion sponsorship means food, healthcare, education, and most of all, being known, loved, and protected. There are thousands of kids waiting over a year. End their wait. Sponsor a child with compassion today. Text the word radio to 83393.
This is the KBLA Sports Minute with Ray Richardson.
One of the most significant milestones in LeBron's 23-year NBA career came to an end Thursday night in Toronto. The Lakers beat Toronto 123-120 on Rui Hachimura's three-pointer at the buzzer, but the main discussion after the game and around the NBA was LeBron. For the first time in 18 years, LeBron failed to score in double figures, a streak that had lasted an NBA record 1,297 consecutive games. LeBron had 8 points in 36 minutes. He only made 4 of 17 shots, including 0 for 5 on three-pointers, and had no free throw attempts. LeBron did have 11 assists. Number 11 set up Hachimura for his game-winning shot. LeBron had the ball on the Lakers' final possession, but he saw Hachimura open in the corner. To put this in perspective, Michael Jordan is the only player close to LeBron with 866 straight games scoring in double figures. That 1,297 might never be broken. No debates, no speculation, just the info you need. That's your KBLA Sports Minute. I'm Ray Richardson on KBLA Talk 1580.
This is KBLA Talk 1580. Talk radio. That's music to your ears. We're unapologetically progressive. KBLA Talk 1580.
We ask seniors how to prevent Medicare scams.
My best advice, if you get a phone call, do not talk to the person. These people are well trained. Don't talk to them.
They don't know me. They're just trying to scam me.
Don't be fooled. Hang up.
Just hang up.
Never give out your Medicare number.
They're going to get your number to put in a false claim.
If I get a call from someone, I don't pick up the phone. And should I pick up the phone and they ask for information, then I hang up.
How do you detect Medicare fraud?
Just like I check my credit card statements, I check my Medicare statements monthly.
Scammers can get a hold of your number, order medical devices through your account, and you're not even going to know about it if you don't look at your statement.
Check your statement every month.
If you get your statement and you see something that you know you did not have done, you report it.
Call your Senior Medicare Patrol.
To report Medicare fraud, call the Senior Medicare Patrol at 855-613-7080.
This holiday season, KBLA Talk 1580 wishes you and yours joy, peace, and prosperity. As we celebrate with family and friends, we're already looking forward to an exciting first quarter, packed with must-attend events to kick off the new year just right. In January, join us for our inaugural Brotherhood Brunch, bringing together community leaders, change makers, and everyday people for inspiration and connection. February means it's time for our signature Black History Month luncheon, a powerful celebration you won't want to miss. And in March, Women's History Month, we're once again hosting our State of Black Women in Los Angeles Symposium and Luncheon, addressing the issues that matter most inside our community. From all of us at KBLA Talk 1580, happy holidays. Stay tuned for more details on these incredible upcoming events. KBLA Talk 1580, your voice, your community, your power.
If you've been diagnosed with moderate to severe plaque psoriasis, this is what it sounds like to be a million miles away. Imagine being a million miles away. Tremfya Kuselkumab, taken by injection, is a prescription medicine for adults with moderate to severe plaque psoriasis who may benefit from taking injections or pills or phototherapy. With Tremfya, clearer skin is possible. In clinical trials, at least 70% of patients saw at least 90% clearer skin at 16 weeks. Results may vary. Tremfya is also indicated for adults with active psoriatic arthritis. Serious allergic reactions and increased risk of infections and liver problems may occur. Before treatment, your doctor should check you for infections and tuberculosis. Tell your doctor if you have an infection, flu-like symptoms, or if you need a vaccine. Ask your doctor about Tremfya. Call 1-800-526-7736 or visit tremfya.com.
We knew you'd stick around. This is LA's home for Progressive Talk Radio. Be heard. Welcome back to KBLA Talk 1580.
And it's winter, it's holiday season, Kwanzaa, Xmas, and all that good stuff. Well, Metro is spreading a little holiday cheer across Los Angeles. The city's got festivals and parades and lights everywhere, loving that. Well, now Metro and MetroLink have partnered to offer a special gift to the community. They're free rides on a MetroLink Holiday Express train from Union Station. Now, you can only get these, you can only win these, you can't buy them, you can't just show up. And we have a pair of tickets for you. It's a ride all around town with Mr. and Mrs. Claus. It's a festively decorated train with cheerful carolers, treats and snacks, and interactive experiences. What a great way to spend a morning. If you have kids or elders that want something fun and festive to do for the holiday, we've got a pair of tickets right now, courtesy of KBLA and LA Metro and MetroLink at 800-920-1580, 800-920-1580. Of course, it is Freedmen Friday. We are talking reparations. The idea is to make sure that we have as much information as possible. Our guest, Dayvon Love, is the Director of Public Policy for Leaders of a Beautiful Struggle. I really am fascinated to hear all the different angles that you guys are taking in the state of Maryland and the city of Baltimore to get at reparations. And at the same time, you have all these, okay, you can have a single issue fund or commission, you can have statewide, a citywide, they're interacting with each other, but at the same time holding the line on what is reparations and what is not.
Yeah, one of the things that I feel like it's happened over the past few years is that with reparations becoming something that is getting more mainstream traction, you have people talking about reparations in ways that are disconnected from its kind of ideological and movement history genealogy. So you think about reparations that come squarely from the kind of revolutionary Pan-African nationalist, revolutionary Black nationalist worldview perspective and framework in its most ardent advocates, whether, it's Callie House, whether we're talking about,
Callie House,
Mother
one
Moore.
of the very first reparationists. And of course, Queen Mother Moore, one of the first of the modern era.
That's right. And so when we think about what emerged in both contexts, it wasn't just about cash, but it was about investing in our capacity to be able to practice freedom and sovereignty, that was connected to the effort around compensation. And so I think, there's been a mainstreaming of reparations that is dislodged, reparations from its movement context. Here in Maryland, one of the things I'm proud of is that we've been consistent in making sure that the reparations, framework is something that is explicitly connected to that movement history, making sure that it's not co-opted in ways that will water it down, right, and make it more about economic inclusion instead of revolution and black sovereignty.
Right, make it another entrepreneurial program of some kind of another watered down entrepreneurial program. Speaking of that, I mean, you say it's mainstream, but here in California, we're still seeing the polling, and it seems to have gotten worse since this administration has come in, where reparations is not supported. It's supported until you say money, and particularly among white folks that, public opinion remains pretty stuck against cash reparations or resources being moved. Is that the same in Maryland?
Well, Maryland is interesting because, Maryland's black population is at about 30%. Its Latino population is probably around 14%. So the rank and file of the Democratic Party in Maryland, is black and brown. And I think that's a part of why the past three cycles, even though it wasn't successful, there were 3 straight black Democratic nominees for governor here in Maryland, right? Because I think the electorate is such where, it makes that almost a necessity for a Democratic nominee for governor. And so I think, in Maryland, with the rank and file being of the party that has a supermajority being, folks of color, it has created a context where I think reparations as a concept is more viable. We have the largest black caucus in the country. And again, it was our legislative black caucus of Maryland that actually made the reparations bill from this year, put that on the table. And it was, their kind of collective effort. And I want to really give a lot of credit to the legislative black caucus because, when we think about the black caucus on the federal level, if we're being honest about its function, it's really a cultural representative of the Democratic Party. It's not a force in the legislative landscape in Washington, D.C. But our legislative black caucus of Maryland has built itself up to a point where it is a force in the legislative landscape that organizations covet their issue being a legislative black caucus priority. And so it's because we have a large black caucus, right, with strong black representation and a caucus that now operates in a way where it's wielding its power. A lot of the legislative victories that I've talked about, with you, all of them were legislative black caucus priorities. And so I think in Maryland, we have, I think, a strong appetite for reparations. And so even though this, we're still, a minority numerically in the state of Maryland, we're sizable enough to impact the political landscape. And I think that's going to be really important in staving off attempts to water down or undermine the reparations movement here.
Yeah, this is a really good point. What do you think is the role of pop culture at this point? Like, particularly hip hop, because we tend to be more outspoken in the hip hop space, in sort of normalizing and creating public acceptance for reparations when it comes to cutting checks and real moving of resources.
I mean, I think it's really important in the pop culture sense that reparations become something that is a serious subject. Like I would say maybe 15 or 20 years ago, if reparations was raised in a pop culture setting, it was raised alongside the implication that it's impractical, it's impossible, and just a lot of caricatures, of what reparations would be. We all know like the famous Dave Chappelle skit, right? And so, so I would say, more than 20 years ago, if reparations came up, there was a caricature. I think now we're in a moment where when reparations comes up, it's taken seriously as a real set of policy discussions and objectives that folks have to contend with.
I mean,
And so I think
you do have you do have some rappers like Public Enemy and Tupac, who, even Nipsey, who, even though they might not have done a whole manifesto about it, they mention it in the context of their songs, and they're not taking it lightly. They're demanding it for us. That's one of the reasons why I asked, the question. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think those influences have been important because a lot of what people are drawing from today is from some of that kind of cultural memory, right? From folks having heard those conversations. And now that it's understood as something politically viable, folks are pulling from, a lot of that work.
Yeah. I think it's all of our job too, really, honestly. Like, even if we're not Chuck D, we have a group of people that listen to us or care what we think. This week is the Evanston Reparations Symposium, right? Started on day before yesterday. I think it goes through today or tomorrow. People from all over the country, I think about a couple hundred people, maybe a little more, are there. And LA Times had an interesting article on yesterday about how reparations hasn't disappeared, but it has gone more local. It's an argument I've been making all along, which is that because we know that we're not going to see, it doesn't appear that we're going to see any progress under this administration, folks are super focusing on the local. What are your thoughts about the Evanston gathering and that move to look local instead of focusing on HR 40 or, something federal?
Yeah, I think all these efforts are important. I think working locally helps to make the case for what it looks like to do it federally. And I think, one of the things that's also important that requires some discussion, because it's one thing to go after reparations from public institutions, from the state governments, from local governments, right? And I think that's a part of the work. There's also conversations to be had about how to seize resources from private institutions. And actually, one of the bills that we're going to put in the Maryland General Assembly this coming session is a bill that would essentially tax the endowments of institutions with endowments above $2 billion. Right, with the idea being, and then those resources going into a reparations fund. And so, so for us, that's an example of like, how do you go after private institutions for whom? And one of the biggest institutions that we have here in the state of Maryland has a $16 billion endowment is Johns Hopkins. Johns Hopkins is a major global institution founded here in Baltimore. So much of its ability to become this multi-billion-dollar mammoth has to do with, the way that it participated in the plunder of black neighborhoods in East Baltimore, the medical experimentation on black people, Henrietta Lacks, for people who aren't familiar with their cells, that, that the immortal cells of Henrietta Lacks that have been the basis for many of the medical discoveries that Johns Hopkins has been able to do to profit off of. And so, as black folks, we need to seize resources from private institutions and develop legislative mechanisms to do so. And so doing that locally provides the basis for then developing a really tight set of proposals, whether HR 40 passes and it's a part of a study, these local commissions, these local efforts help to form the basis to be precise about what it would look like on the federal level.
Yeah, I also feel like they help normalize, back to this conversation about whether it's hip hop or pop culture, as you said, the comedians of the world who could circle back now that it's a legit, seen as a legit issue. It's always been a legit issue. But Dick Gregory was the one that used to tell me the real work right now is normalizing reparations. And part of that to me is the fact that we've paid reparations to all kinds of groups in this country, not just the Japanese, like all kinds of groups. And it only becomes a problem for some reason when you talk about reparations for Black Americans, freedmen, whatever you want to call us, descendants of enslaved, ADOS, DDoS, DOBUS, whatever it is. Apparently, we're the only ones y'all don't want to pay.
Yeah, and one of the things that I think forms the basis of that anxiety, I had a recent conversation with some conservatives, and their belief, and it's a tacit belief, that the project of European domination of the world, for them, was about lifting black people out of the darkness, that they believed that black people had nothing virtually before they came into world history.
Right. They're ignorant, in other words.
Exactly. And that belief is so foundational.
Yeah.
Because if you believe that people of African descent had no history, culture, civilization, then it is a rational belief to think then enslavement is a benefit to African people. Like, that is their logic and rationale.
That's a profound point, because they think that slavery was an upgrade for us compared to what we had before, and do not acknowledge the fact that we are the foundation of world civilization. Mathematics, medicine, agriculture, architecture. I mean, it all comes out of ancient Kemet. Egypt, which is Africa. So, yeah, that's a really good point. That if you can't acknowledge that we had anything, then you can't acknowledge that you took anything away.
Exactly. It's offensive to their vision of the world.
Dayvon Love is our guest, but you know what? People's worldviews change all the time, and we're finna do that. It's a Freedmen Friday on KBLA Talk 1580.
More of First Things First with Dominique DePrima when we come forward.
Established in 2020 during a time of deep racial unrest across our state and country, the Black Freedom Fund was created to make sure that leaders and organizations working to support Black communities and build power have the resources they need to stay in the fight for the long haul. We believe that those closest to the issues impacting our communities know best how to solve them. That's why in just the last 5 years, we've granted more than $45 million to over 200 grassroots organizations across California. That is the largest collective investment in Black organizing in history, and we're just getting started. We are clear-eyed and committed, more now than ever, to our people, our power, and our possibility. Join us in creating a future where Black people harness their full power to shape their lives and realize a just world for all. Learn more at fundblackfreedom.org. That's fundblackfreedom.org. The Black Freedom Fund is proud to sponsor Conversation Live Altadena Rising with James Farr on KBLA Talk 1580. Cedars-Sinai is helping shape the future of Los Angeles, working alongside local communities and showing up with resources and healthcare programs that open doors for people across the city. Through career development programs like Next Gen Healthcare Pathways and partnerships with over 200 organizations like Black Men in White Coats, Cedars-Sinai is educating and empowering future healthcare leaders right here in LA. With access to education, mentorships, and hands-on experiences, we can build a healthier Los Angeles together. Cedars-Sinai, here for LA.
KBLA Talk 1580. We've got a lot to talk about.
KBLA Talk 1580, connecting you with services and solutions. If you need help getting your resume in order, finding job training, or landing a job, we've got 3 great options for you. First, the City of Los Angeles has WorkSource centers across the area offering free job support. The California Workforce Development Board can help you with everything from GED prep to vocational training at no cost to you. On the federal level, the Department of Labor's American Job Centers offer a full range of services for job seekers and businesses alike. Visit careeronestop.org, or for more info, just call California's Help Center or visit cwdb.ca.gov or call 916-657-1440. For the City of Los Angeles programs, go to ewdd.lacity.gov or call 213-744-7300. All these services are free to help you get your next job. This is a community call to action from KBLA Talk 1580.
Heard any other talk radio lately that sounds anything like this? We didn't think so. You're listening to Unapologetically Progressive KBLA Talk 1580.
Talking with Dayvon Love, I was mentioning that the Evanston, I believe it's the last day of that symposium on reparations. I like to point it out, though, because a couple hundred, 250, they're saying people gathering in Evanston to talk reparations is significant. Here on the West Coast, the city of Santa Monica reached a settlement with the descendants of Silas White, a Black man who was trying to open something called the Ebony Beach Club. He had actually already reached an agreement, a real estate agreement, had made a payment, and the city of Santa Monica now doing a $350,000 payment to the Connie White, who is the descendant of Silas White. They are looking at establishing a fund. They've got $3.5 million from some grant that they had from the Rand Corporation, I believe, that they're going to be looking at how they can implement that in the city. It's a small but super expensive beachside city. Do these kinds of victories help you in Maryland, Dayvon Love?
I think they help because I think one of the challenges with reparations advocacy is that for so many people, the concept of reparations requires like white folks to get on board, as opposed to recognizing that what is necessary is for us as a people to be organized on the basis of strength and power and be able to use the variety of tools at our disposal to advance the policy itself. And so for some people, it's abstract, it's far-fetched. And so these, kinds of settlements and examples where folks are being compensated helps to provide, in some ways, like the confidence and kind of proof of concept for people to see that it's possible. And I think when people have a sense that something's possible, people are more emphatic about their support, and that can generate the support for other initiatives. So those are examples that are important for the work that I do.
Yeah, and I would also add, just for the record, that they've named a section of a street after Silas White, and they're also establishing an exhibit in the city's main library. So, it is cut the check, but as we often say, there's more to it. Dayvon Love, what strategies or tactics have been most effective for you in your fight for reparations in Baltimore and in the state of Maryland?
I mean, one of the things that I'm most proud of, when we founded LBS, one of the things, we have an explicitly revolutionary Pan-African nationalist perspective, and people would often say, you're going to have to tone down that black stuff. And one of the things, they say you have to eventually, like, quote unquote, grow up. And one of the things that I'm most proud of is that we've been able to maintain our perspective and commitment to that worldview, but also be effective. And that's because of the nature of the theory of change that we use. That, our approach to advocacy isn't about getting people with proximity to white institutions and mainstream society to approve of what we do. But our theory of change is that if we organize strong in our community and develop a strong base of support, a strong, sturdy, extensive base of support, we can use that as the basis for the power we wield in the political landscape. LBS is not a nonprofit, we're an LLC, and we did that explicitly because we can confront the political establishment in a way that people that are constrained by the C3 status aren't able to. And so it is that theory of change that understands that, we're in a society where we're contesting for power and resources, right? That we're engaged in political warfare to advance the interests of our community. And so that, as our theory of change, is what has allowed us to be able to accomplish, many of the things that, we've talked about, this morning. And I think that's a really strong lesson to show black people that we can win on our own terms, right? We don't need to be dependent on sponsorship from folks, right? If people want to help, they can help. But the power comes from our community, not in like an after school special kind of way, but like in a real, like that is where our power really comes from. And that has been the basis for our ability to do what we've been able to do.
Yeah, it reminds me of my friend, the late Bo Taylor, who founded Unity One, gang peace organization here in LA. He insisted that it was going to be an LLC. He didn't want to be a nonprofit. And I think that's really interesting right now in Trump's America, where he has explicitly said he's going to go after nonprofits that he considers counter to his agenda and take away our ability to raise money. But he certainly couldn't do that to you, apparently.
That's right. And that has actually been a huge benefit. That's because people have tried. Some people who didn't know we were nonprofits have asked legislators, like, who's on their board, right? We've actually worked with folks on other issues where it was controversial in our legislature, and in working with organizations that are nonprofits, and legislators attempt to call their boards to try to get them and threaten them in terms of access to resources or access, to those conversations. But when your business model is about being independent and self-sufficient, we have a business model that, again, relies really on our base of support from the community. And so that allows us to say whatever we want to say, right, in ways that other people feel constrained.
That's wild. Okay, well, tell us how we can support the work. We've got a minute here to do with it as you will, Dayvon Love.
So follow us on all relevant social media on lbsbaltimore.com. Oh, LBS Baltimore. Go to our website at lbsbaltimore.com. Sign up to be on our listserv. We send out action alerts. So even if you're not in Maryland, but you're supportive of reparations, you can call the legislators and let them know that people nationally are looking, so that we can help build pressure to override this veto. And also follow me on Substack as well.
On Substack, you're Dayvon Love?
Dayvon Love on Substack.
All right. Well, you did that really economically. You still got 30 seconds. Anything else you want to say to us this morning?
Thanks for having me on, and hopefully I can come back on in the beginning of January to talk about the override.
Yes, I would love that. Name it and claim it. That would be an amazing victory. Right. And thank you for the work that you're doing out there. I think it's so important that we have the spirit of we are not giving up.
That's right. Appreciate you for having me on.
Absolutely. We've got the phone lines wide open. Caller amnesty, which means you can call even if you've called before this week at 800-920-1580. I'm Dominique DePrima. Happy Friday from KBLA Talk 1580.
KBLA 1580 Santa Monica.
I'm Bree Wood with BIN News Now. A Michigan Army veteran is getting a chance to retire thanks to social media. TikToker Sam Wiedenhofer launched a GoFundMe for 88-year-old Deb Bombas, whose GM pension was wiped out in 2012. Here's Bombas' son, Mike.